Hello wonderful people and welcome to our latest workshop. Today we're going to be learning how to make the Lottie top and bra pattern. This pattern is a lovely racerback style base layer, I would say, and it can be made two ways. You can either make it in the long version, which comes down to the hips, or you can make the shorter version, which is like a crop top with a supportive elasticated underband. I guess we should just jump straight in. So for this pattern, you are going to need a sewing machine, and if you just have a normal domestic sewing machine, that's great, as long as it's got a zigzag stitch. If you have an overlocker and you want to use it, I'll also be demonstrating on that so you can see how to use either or depending on what machine you have. But you do not need both of these machines. If you've just got a domestic, that is absolutely fine. For this pattern, you will need some lovely, I would recommend organic cotton jersey, but any kind of stretch fabric will do. It's a good idea if the stretch is going both ways, that will give a nice amount of support. So you're also going to need some elastic, and I would recommend 3 or 4 centimeter wide elastic. See what you've got in your stash. We also sell the 3 centimeter wide elastic if you need to get some. You want an elastic that has a nice amount of give to it so that you can get the sports bra on, but you also want it to feel quite rigid and supportive. So find an elastic that works for you. And then as well as that, you're going to need some nice thread. I always tend to go for something really nice and strong. This is an organic cotton thread. We sell those on the shop too. And obviously you'll need the pattern, which you can either get as the printed pattern like this or as a PDF pattern, and then you can print it at home. So once you've gathered all your bits, just have a little look at your pattern. So if you open this up, inside you will see you've got your instruction booklet and you've got your pattern. So the first thing we need to do is work out what size you are going to make. And in order to do that, you want to open up page 4 and you will see your body measurement chart. And if you're making the full length version of the top, then you'll need your bust, waist and hip measurement. If you're just making the sports bra version, you'll just need your bust and waist measurement. Really simple. Grab a tape measure, wrap it around you and find your measurements. So if you need your hip measurement for the longer version, that's that one there. I'd recommend not doing this with floaty clothing on like me. Get something a little bit tighter fitting on to do it. And then if you want to find your waist measurement, that's around your belly button area. Just have a little measure of that. And then your bust measurement is the fullest part of your chest. Make sure your tape measure's not twisted. And just have a little measure of that. Jot down those numbers and then open back up to page 4 and see which size you're closest to. So our sizes run from a UK 6 to a 24, and whichever one you're closest to is the size that you're going to make. If you're between sizes, you can decide whether you either want to grade the pattern slightly, and I'll do separate tutorials on that, or whether you just want to make one that's a little bit bigger or a little bit smaller, and the fit should work just fine because this is a stretch fabric. It's very forgiving when it comes to fit. So once we know our size, we're going to take our pattern, clear some space. I'm going to move that out the way, I'm going to move that out the way. Got a nice bit of table, and just open out your pattern piece. And you'll see the pattern here. It's really annoying. My printers couldn't print this on a smaller piece, but I hope you can make use of that paper. Maybe wrap some presents in it or something. So here we have our pattern, and it's a nice, small, manageable pattern to work with. And we're just gonna take a look at our size chart key, which is here, find the size that we want to make and match it up to the corresponding dotty crossy line, however you want to call it, and then find that line on the pattern and cut around the pattern piece. Really simple. Grab yourself some paper scissors, and I think I'm gonna make a size 10 today. So I'm gonna find my size 10 line, and I'm just gonna cut straight in, and I'm gonna go all the way around the pattern. Trying to keep my cutting really nice and smooth. All right, just cutting out our last little bit. Now, I think today I'm gonna make the bra version for you, because then I can demonstrate how to do the underband, because the construction is exactly the same for this one. You just hem the bottom. But if I do this one, then I can show you how to put the elastic in. So in order to do that, I need to take my front piece and my back piece, and I'm just gonna cut along these lines here. They're the lines for the bra. So I'm going to trim that down, but I'm going to save those bits. It's a good idea to save those so that if you do want to make the longer version, you can just stick them back together. All right, awesome. So we've got our pattern pieces. I'm going to get rid of the bits that I don't need for now. And I'm just going to quickly talk you through where these bits go on the body. So this is our front piece, and this goes on the front of the chest here, and it's cut on the fold, which means you cut one piece out, but it has a fold down the middle when you cut it. This is the back piece. Same thing, but on the back, and then goes across both shoulder blades. Beautiful. And then all that's left is the neck hole binding, which again is cut on the fold. And that's, can you see this little bit that my microphone's clipped onto, is that binding there. And then the armhole binding, which you can see here, is going around the armhole. Really simple. Let's get some fabric on the table and we can cut out our pattern pieces. I am going to stick with my red jersey today. I'm in a red kind of mood. And let's just unroll it. And then if you open up your little booklet here and you turn to page 6, you'll see there's some lay plans with how best to lay it out. This is a really simple pattern, so I don't think you'll have any trouble. The only thing you need to remember is that these pieces are cut on the fold, and I'll demonstrate how to cut on the fold now. Okay, so what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna grab my pieces and see how tall they are, and just lay them on the fabric there. So I know I'm gonna need about that much fabric, and then I'm just gonna cut that off the roll. We've got our fabric, and now we're gonna fold this fabric like the lay plan. All I'm gonna do is fold the selvage into the center there on one side, and fold the selvage into the center there on the other side. Make sure it's nice and flat and we've not got any wrinkles. If If you've got any big creases and you want to give it an iron, you can do that now. I'm just going to crack on. And I'm going to lay one pattern piece there, one pattern piece there, another pattern piece on the fold there, and another pattern piece on the fold there. Obviously, with the size 10, we've got quite a lot of room still in the middle, but if you were doing a size 24, for example, your piece would come out to here. So I'm just demonstrating like this so that you can all see. And with this leftover bit of fabric in the middle, I would probably make a pair of Josie pants or the little Della legging shorts, because that would fit in there nicely. I like to save all my scraps and make the most of them. So I'm just popping a couple of pins in, and I'm making sure that this symbol here, the fold symbol, is lining up with the fold of the fabric on all of these pieces. So you can see that little cut on the fold symbol. That's lining up there. And then pop some pins in. And that's the same for all the pieces with this pattern. Same thing over here. We've got the cut on the fold symbol. We're lining that up with the fold of the fabric. Let's cut out. Grab your fabric scissors, and I'm just going to pop a little weight on there to hold it in place as well. And then we're going to go round. We don't need to add anything on, the seam allowance is already included. So grab your fabric, make sure you cut out 2 armhole pieces. Let's do that now. Here we go, this is where I was cutting from. Look, oh, it's like I knew. There's a perfect little section here. Obviously, you've got 2 armholes, so you need 2 of these guys. Line that right up next to where we were. Cool. Job's a good one. All right, my friends, let's start sewing. Find your domestic machine, give it a dust off, thread it up with some nice strong thread, and then have a little play around with some stitches. Any stitches that work for stretch fabric are great for this. So your normal zigzag, your 3-step zigzag, your twin needle if you've got one. I'm just going to show you 2 stitches that I think are great for this pattern. So we've got a normal zigzag. Always start with a little back stitch so that the thread is secure. And always end with a little back stitch. And then you get this lovely, neat zigzag stitch. It's really nice and strong when you open the seam out. See that? And then the one other one that you can have a nice experiment with, if I just cut a bit of this scrap off, is a 3-step zigzag. So gonna swap my machine over to a 3-step zigzag and do you a little demo. Beautiful. I hope you can see that red on red, but that is your 3-step zigzag. So have a little practice on your machine, make sure you've got the right needle in, make sure your tension is all good, And when you're happy with your stitch, then we can start sewing. So first up, we can leave your bindings out the way for later. So we're gonna grab our front bodice and our back bodice piece. So that's A and B. We're gonna lay them out like this. And you want your right side of the jersey facing up towards the sky for your bottom piece. And then your right side of the jersey sandwiching that, so facing down towards the table. And we're just gonna pin our shoulder seams and our side seams. If I just swizzle that round for you guys to see. So we've pinned our side seams and our shoulder seams, and now we're gonna stitch those all in place. So using your chosen stitch, whether it's a normal zigzag, a 3-step zigzag, or an overlocker if you've got one, we're just gonna go for it. And the seam allowance is 1.5 here. Just gonna lengthen that stitch ever so slightly. Every time I'm just starting and finishing with a nice back stitch to keep it really strong. Try not to stretch out the fabric too much as I sew. So that is how you do it. If you've only got a domestic machine, leave it there, job's a good one. You can trim down your seam allowances if you want. However, if you have an overlocker and you want to use that instead, I'm going to demonstrate using the overlocker just so you guys can all see, because it's nice for you to know. This is more like how it would be made if it was in a factory, I guess. So these machines are really magical. They just finish the raw edge perfectly and they still allow the fabric to stretch. So I'm just going to sew exactly where I've sewn the zigzag stitch, but I'm doing this so that you can see what the overlocker looks like. It gives you that lovely, neat stitch. I should really have changed the threads to red, but hey ho. At least it means you can see what's going on. If you get any funky bits like that, you can normally just pull them out of the way, don't need them. And then trim your threads. So much thread. Okay, let's get rid of it all. Nice one. So as you can see, we're already well on our way to sports bra heaven. Now all we need to do is bind the neck, bind the armholes, and add the elastic. I'm just going to check in my instruction booklet which one I tell you guys to do first, because I want to keep it consistent. So yeah, cool. Let's do neck binding first, which is this guy here. And I'm going to demonstrate this on the overlocker, but you can totally do this with the zigzag machine, exactly the same. So we've got our neck binding piece, which is this long, thin, skinny one. And with right sides together, you're going to fold it in half. And you're just going to sew across this top bit here with a 1.5 seam allowance. Lovely. Oh, my overlocker's just misbehaving there. Just get that bit out. Trim those threads, get those out the way. And then we're gonna turn our garment inside out. And I'll move this out of the way a bit so you can really see. So we've got the garment inside out. We're gonna take our neck hole binding, we're gonna fold it in half all the way around like so. And we're gonna line up this seam at the back with the center back of the garment neck and pin that in place. I'm just doing this by eye because I've made quite a few of these, but if you want to notch the center back, you can do, and then find the halfway point by just folding it in half like that. Find the center front of the neck and pop another pin in. So I hope you guys can see this. We've got the neck binding pinned inside the neck hole, and we're just ever so gently going to stretch out the neck binding so that it fits in that hole, and then we're going to pin it in place. So folding the neck binding in half, pinning it all the way around. It's going to be ever so slightly stretched out when we sew, and that's going to allow it to sit really flat and smooth. Just making sure your stretch is really evenly spread throughout. Four pins enough? Going to do a couple more, just to be on the safe side. Okay, beautiful. So a good thing to bear in mind here is that the seam allowance changes. So it's no longer 1.5 because that would be too wide for such a thin bit of fabric. So here it's around 0.7, 0.8, which is roughly the width of an overlocker stitch. However, if you're doing it on a domestic machine, just stick with your zigzag and go for it. So now I'm just going to sew that neck binding all in place, ever so gently stretching it out as I go. Taking one pin out at a time. Just taking it really slow, making sure all my raw edges are matching up. And then when I get back round to the beginning, I just overlap by a couple of centimetres and then come off. Trim it there, and then if you pull one of those threads, they all tighten up a little bit, which is nice. It's a neater finish. And then trim that. If I turn that the right way around, you guys can see we've got our neck binding on. Very satisfying. You can give that a little press with the iron if you want. I'm going to jump straight onto the armhole bindings. It's exactly the same technique. Just crack on. So we're just getting these armhole bindings on. Trim that. Do the magic trick that sometimes works. It's gonna work, yes. Pull one of your threads and the others should tighten. Trim it away. Now, if I turn that the right way round, so we should start to have a sports bra coming together now. We've got our armhole bindings on, we've got our neck binding on, and all we need to do now is attach our elastic. If you were doing the longer version, all you would do now is simply hem it. So you would turn under the bottom and zigzag or cover stitch. But for this one, we're going to add this nice elastic that gives it that extra support. So take your elastic. I'm using this one, it's 3 centimeters wide. You could probably get away with one that's 4 centimeters wide, but this one is going to work for us. And grab your instruction booklet and have a little look inside and find your finished garment measurement chart. Now the top line of this chart says bra, and then in little brackets underneath it says elastic. So this is the length of elastic that you need to cut for your size. I'm making a 10, so I need roughly 71 centimeters of elastic, and that includes a 3 centimeter seam allowance. So just bear that in mind when you're measuring up. The best thing to do here before you cut the elastic is take it off the roll and literally wrap it around where it's going to sit underneath your chest. So see how that feels, give it a measure. If it's close-ish to 71 centimeters, I'm going to be happy. Guys, I'm sorry, but look at that. We're on 71 centimeters. I'm a happy lady. I'm going to cut that. It's almost like I designed these patterns. It's weird. So I'm going to cut that. And then once again, I'm going to demonstrate on the overlocker for those who are interested, but you could equally do this technique with a zigzag stitch. It's exactly the same technique. You're just using a zigzag rather than an overlock. So I'm going to get my machine in position, and I'm going to start at a side seam. And I've got my sports bra the right way round. And I'm just going to take my elastic. These two reds clash, which is doing something funny to my eyes. I'm going to take my elastic and I'm just going to sew it on the bottom edge all the way around. So you'll see as it comes through the machine. And I'm gently stretching out the elastic. If you want to pin this beforehand, you can, but I'm just going to freestyle it. I'm going to gently stretch out the elastic. All right, keep it going. Just make sure you're going to have enough to get all the way around. Yeah, I'm looking good, I'm looking good. Happy with that. And then you're going to have a little overlap at the end of around 3 centimeters. It's looking like I've got a tiny bit more, but that's fine. So just come off the machine, grab your scissors. Where are they? They're hiding over there. Trim your thread, trim any excess elastic. You're going to fold your elastic up once, fold it under, and then fold it under again. And we're going to pin it all the way around like that. So taking some pins, popping them in. Same thing. So I'm folding it once, folding it twice until you've got a really nice encased elastic. Pop a pin in. Same thing, a little bit further round, fold it once, fold it twice. Something really satisfying about this bit. That's a bent pin, that's not satisfying. Need a straight pin, there we go. And let's keep going around here. Beautiful. All right, I think we're ready to sew. I'm going to demonstrate on the zigzag for this, just to keep it fresh, so you get to see both machines in action. However, if you have a cover stitch and you wanted to cover stitch this, you totally could. So in order to do this, I'm going to go onto a normal zigzag stitch, like so, and I'm going to start at the side seam. I'm going to start after the bulky bit because I don't like starting on a bulky bit. And then I'm going to gently stretch out the elastic as I sew. Do a little back stitch at the beginning. And I'm just sewing near the top edge of the elastic. And this is what gives you that nice comfortable support. You can see I'm using one hand here to stretch out the back and one hand at the front here to stretch out the front. Just taking it really slow, taking my time, making sure everything's sitting nice and flat. When I get back round to the start, I'm just going to do a little back stitch. And there we have it, I think. Happy days. I'm going to pop this on the mannequin so you guys can see. So we've got a lovely little sports bra. You can give it all a little press if you want to make all of these guys sit the way you want them to. Sometimes they like to flap in like that if they haven't been pressed. Let me grab this one. And let's see if she fits. Nice. All right. There we go, sports bra. So that is the Lottie bra. This is the Lottie top. I've been Lydia. That's another workshop. Happy days. Thanks so much for coming. If you've made a Lottie top or bra and you're on Instagram and you want to share it, we would love to see it. Just simply hashtag Lottie top and bra and give us a tag at Made My Wardrobe. And that's the same handle for YouTube as well. If you want to check out our channel, we've got loads more workshops and tutorials on there. Thank you so much for coming. It's been a joy to sew with you again, and I hope to see you all again soon.